So happy December, everybody. How are you feeling? Yeah. Morning, Jay.
Hey,
Always
Peter.
nice to see you.
Yeah,
Everybody feeling all right?
you bet.
Yes.
You know what's really great about it? We will all, at some point in the future, in the next year or two or three or four, when people are talking about this, we will go, oh no, we lived through that year. It was the wildest year of all time. And it will become a part of folklore when we look back on it. It's not too folklore right now because we're in the middle of it, but it's pretty wild. So, what if we just said today, let's make today the beginning of the next year. So really today it's perfect. It's December 1st. And before I start, I want to say something to everybody here because I won't. Hi, Ann Neubauer. Morning, JRW fam. Morning. I'd like to toss an idea out here. And we kind of touched on it in yesterday morning's weekly, but normally December is the time when we go to parties and we connect with people and, we're sort of in this frenzy, but it's a little different right now, which really gives us an extraordinary opportunity. We've talked about this over the last 4 months, but I think the idea is to double down now on connection. And what it doesn't mean is to double down now on more emails. It doesn't mean doubling down on more texts. What it means is doubling down on picking up the phone and saying, Samantha, I've been thinking about you for 2 years. For the last 6 months, every time you've crossed my mind, I haven't picked up the phone, and I promised to myself today I was going to pick up the phone. How are you feeling these days with everything that's gone on for the last 8 months? And remember, we talked about this earlier. We don't say, how are you doing? And this is a critical differentiation, because what we used to say is, hey, I was thinking about you, how you doing? And when you ask that question, you know how everybody answers it. They go, oh, pretty good. And you get the fluff, superficial answer. Right now, because of what's happened in this year, people are craving connection. They're craving real. They've been more emotional between the pandemic and politics. I don't believe in my short 60 some years I've seen a time that has been more emotionally raw ever. And I don't want to say take advantage of that, but let's allow the people that we know to express their feelings. And most importantly, when they answer, just listen and let them talk. And it's totally appropriate right now to say, what are you most nervous about? Who do you know that's gotten COVID? How's everybody? Do you know anybody who's lost a job? If you have anybody on your list that owns a restaurant, I heard the other day that 100,000 restaurants will not make it through this. We have this distorted lens, I'm sure you're aware of, that the real estate business, see if this resonates for you. In 2008, 9, and 10, when we had our depression, the real estate business and all the ancillary business got massacred. Right now, everybody else is getting massacred and we're having our time in the sun. It's almost like a payback from 2010, 11, and 12, where everybody else in the country was doing okay during the Great Recession and we were just crushed. Now, most of the country is not doing very well financially, and we are having the best months in our entire business history. So we're out of sync with the rest of the world emotionally. Let's not forget that our experience is not their experience. And let's use December as an opportunity. And what I'd love for you to do now before we do our program today is to make a commitment to call 50 people during December, call, not text, not email, that you haven't talked to since the pandemic started, that that are on your database. It doesn't matter whether they're in Ohio or Michigan or Naples, it doesn't matter, and ask them how they're feeling, not how they're doing. And I think you'll have the richest, emotionally satisfying December in a long time. And that will be a gift that you can give everybody, because we all remember that the most valuable gift you have to offer is what? Yourself. I know you remember that from the Go Giver. Jay's nodding his head. You better, Jay. All right, let's jump right in here. Today is called Living on Purpose, the Ninja Way. So let me ask you all, if you see something that looks like this. Scott, yep, Scott, we're looking like a slideshow here. All righty. You know me, I'm Peter Parnig. I'm your ninja guide for the day. And so let's jump into Living on Purpose the Ninja Way. To remind you, if you downloaded the handout, anytime you see an underline, that's a blank and something to go in the blank as you're scooting along here. So if you recall, the goal of ninja selling is to take you from an on-accident realtor to an on-purpose realtor. And we've talked about this before, but I want to remind you, it turns out that in Florida, it takes 45 hours to get a real estate license. If you want to become a cosmetologist in Florida, guess how many hours of education you have to have? 1,200. So with 45 hours of education, you can sell a $6 million property that might yield a commission north of $300,000. But it takes you 1,200 hours to cut hair on a head like mine. And what we have is we have a bunch of on-accident realtors because we don't really have an education. And so our goal is to take you not only from an on-accident realtor, but from an on-accident life that looks like this to an on-purpose life. So today we want to talk about how to have the shortest distance from point A to B in your life. So the starting question is, are you living your life by default or by design? Are you living your life on accident, on purpose? Most of us, if asked and probed deeply, generally live a responsive life, not a proactive life. In other words, we do our job and we do our business plan maybe, and we do that, but there isn't a bigger picture piece. So that's what we're going to tackle today. We think to do this properly, there are 3 steps to living an on-purpose life. The first is to discover or remind yourself your why, your reason for living. Number 2, be in control of your focus and emotional energy. More than ever, right now, I think it's a really great idea to pay attention to your fear and certainly to the collective fear around us. And then number 3, figure out what you're going to focus on. And we need to focus on our success habits and importantly, associate with the right peer group. I underline fear because, the election, no matter who won the election, the other side believes that the world will come to an end if the other side, whoever that is, got elected. And so half of the population-ish is right now going, oh my gosh, I wonder if the world is going to come to an end. And it didn't matter who got elected, but fear has been the vocabulary, certainly during the whole political time. And we want to pay attention to that. So let's start with number 1. If you've been to an installation, you remember on day 1 we do this, but I'm going to review it in a little bit of depth right now because I think it's important. You may have been introduced to a really interesting book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And he describes in a later book, and I'm talking about this in a second, that there are 2 kinds of people. There are the drifters who go day to day through life, but they don't have a why, a definite chief aim. In other words, if you ask them, what is your purpose in life? There it's like, well, I'm alive and I sell houses, but you can tell that it's not a clear understanding on their part. Where this term drifter comes from is, I think probably the original modern self-improvement book is called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. If you're unfamiliar with this book, it was a book that was commissioned during the Great Depression by Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate. And what he wanted was to figure out why successful people were succeeding even during the Depression. And he commissioned Napoleon Hill to do the research, who was a teacher, to understand what was common. And the title belies what he discovered. It was all in mindset, and how you approached and you believed your life created your life. In other words, if you were to grow rich, either personally or financially, it was preceded by your thoughts. But what's interesting is after he finished Think and Grow Rich, he wrote another book called Outwitting the Devil. And I can't see the chat room, but if you've read or heard of this book, weigh in. It is a completely remarkable book. And I'm going to tell you why. He wrote it in 1938, and it was so controversial. He had such concern about what he discovered. And the format of this book, it is literally a conversation with the devil. And the what was revealed in the conversation was so controversial. He decided that he couldn't release it, and he asked his wife not to publish until his death. When he died, his wife said, "We are not ready to hear this yet." And so finally, the book was published in 2011. If you have an interest in reading this, we suggest that you buy it on Audible, because the devil is read by another voice. So it is a conversation with the devil, and it's just fascinating. And it really is the secret to freedom and success. And so if you have an interest in this, I would encourage you to buy it. It's just a brilliant read on the idea that what the devil was trying to do was find drifters. In other words, people who had no chief definite aim, who were living on default. And what he said about people who are like that, they live in a continuous state of distraction, because with no chief definite aim, they were really looking for others to do their thinking for them. And what he said in here is that those people have a focus generally on being entertained. And when you think about society right now and social media, it's like, here's the key. What he said is, it is easiest for me as the devil to recruit drifters and sway them to my thinking. And he said, this is my favorite topic in the interview with the devil. He says, man, I can really recruit those people and then convert them to my way of thinking, which is one of the reasons that it's controversial. But he said that the idea is that society, and this was written in 1938, was using fear to control what he called the masses. And he said, if you look at it in 1938, fear was the main vocabulary of religious leaders. If you don't accept whatever we believe, you will end up in hell. He said teachers used fear. If you don't do what we say, you'll get expelled or you'll fail in life. Politicians, of course, used fear as their number one method to sway you. The media was always talking about fear because it sells. Parents especially used to talk about fear. You're going to have a terrible life unless you do what I say. But here's what's important. Fear was the number one sales tactic in the 30s, old Depression era sales techniques. If you don't buy this, your life will be worse. And so in the book, he says, fear, there are really two channels. And he said, the devil says this himself, if you believe in the construct. I'm a principle or a form of energy which expresses the negative side of matter and energy. I'm not a person with a forked tongue and a spiked tail. The point of this whole conversation is that if you believe that there are forces at play, and there's a positive force and a negative force, in this book, he says, I personify the negative side of matter and energy, your own energy and the matter around you. And then he said, my favorite tool is fear. But here's what's important. All of us, our DNA wired from birth in our genetic code, that at any given moment, we can choose to either focus on love or fear. And it's built into us. And what the devil says, if you choose love, I cannot recruit you. If you choose fear as your primary modality, you are easy for me to seduce you to my side. And if you'll remember, the reticular activating system, remember Roger Sperry in his Nobel Prize winning research, discovered that little brain cell, set of brain cells that says, whatever you focus on expands. And so if we view love and fear as our choices, and you recall we say in the installation, fear is the absence of love. Now, for 9:38 on a December 1st, we went pretty deep, pretty fast, but let's tie this all together now. What we believe is that love is the antidote to fear. And the drifters are immune from the devil if they focus on love rather than fear. So we say it pretty simply. Whenever you're afraid, you're thinking of yourself. What bad can happen to me? What's in it for me? When is the other shoe going to drop? We watched a movie last night, the sequel to The Secret, And it's pretty clear, whatever you focus on expands. And when you live in fear, you are susceptible to the energy. So our first reminder is to focus on loving and your fears go away. Focus on giving and your fears go away, which is in line with everything at Ninja. And it's also perfectly in line for December and for this month. So the goal is to understand your why. And if you recall, Simon Sinek, if you've read any of his books, and he's written 3 that are brilliant, Start With Why was his first book. And I've already mentioned this over the last 2 or 3 months. His last book, The Infinite Game, is really absolutely brilliantly spectacular on what we're talking about. But in his very first book, he said, what we all have to understand is we have 3 circles. And I'm going to show you 3 different sets of circles today that if you live your life trying to understand what, how, and why, it becomes a lot clearer. Let me give you an example. What everybody on this call does is we sell real estate. That's why we're here. It's why you're at John R. Wood, hopefully. How we do it is a combination of the John R. Wood way and the Ninja way. But why we do it is really what provides the impetus for being in the business. Now, many people say, well, of course I'm doing it to make money. But our question is a deeper question than that. What are you going to do with the money? Because here's what we know. Money in and of itself is not a powerful motivator, because if it were, everybody in the real estate business would be rich. And so what we need to do is understand what our why is. And what I'd like to show right now is a beautiful example. Michael Jr. is a comedian, and he did this fantastic, well, I'll let him describe it to you, but this is really a beautiful example of the difference between your what and your why.
How do I know? A lot of people, when they think of the phrase, how do I know, they always want to put the what behind it. How do I know what I'm supposed to do? The question that you really should ask is, how do I know why I'm here? Because when you know your why, your what becomes more clear and more impactful. If you know, like for instance, people know that I do comedy, but that's what I do. My why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. So I can do comedy, I can write books, I can be in a movie, because all of it is motivated by my why. In fact, I have a new web series out called Michael Jr. Break Time. We probably just did the 6th episode. It's on YouTube. So every single Wednesday at 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode on YouTube of Michael Jr. Break Time. What it is it's me. I travel around the country and I do stand-up comedy, in case you didn't know. And in the middle of my comedy set sometime, I'll stop and just talk to my audience. And we've been filming this, and it's, you know, it's pretty cool. So we're in Winston-Salem. I'm gonna show you a clip from Winston-Salem. And I'm just talking to this guy in the audience, and he tells me that he's a musical instructor at a school. So I was like, all right, you're a musical instructor, you know, can you sing? Let me hear you sing a song. So this is what happened at the last episode of Michael Jr.'s Break Time. Check it. So you're a musical director. Cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, once you give me the version, is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick. If you know which version I'm talking about, just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I'm fine, was blind, but now I see.
Okay. Here's what I want you to catch. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what becomes more impactful because you're walking towards or in your purpose.
Yeah, how about that? Every time I see it, I'm like, holy moly. So for us, the view is that your why is the rocket fuel of your life. Otherwise, you're a drifter. Once you get clear on your why, you have the engine, you have the propulsion, and you know where you're going. So most of you are familiar with the movie The Bucket List. Morgan Freeman, Jack Nicholson. If you remember the idea, I think maybe Morgan Freeman is in the cancer ward. He's terminal, and shows up Jack Nicholson, and then in typical Jack fashion, he goes, "We got to get out of here and do a bunch of stuff before we kick the bucket." And the idea was, and that's become part of our vocabulary. You know, we always say it's a bucket list item. But the interesting thing about that movie is it really is focused on the end game. In other words, I have to do things before I kick the bucket. It's the Hail Mary at the end of our life. And if you remember from the installation, that movie was inspired by a guy named John Goddard, who preceded the movie, born in 1924. And he was called by Newsweek the original Indiana Jones. If you Google him, he's this crazy adventurer. Larry Kendall found him and brought him here to Fort Collins, 25 years ago, to speak to the group and to our clients. 1,200 people in the room, and the guy is talking about the power of a life list. Think about this. A bucket list is a list that says, I want to do that before the end. A life list says, I want to plan and live an on-purpose life so that I don't get to the end going, oh my gosh, here are all the things I didn't do. And if you remember in the installation, we do this. After dinner, after the presentation, Larry was sitting at dinner with John Goddard, and they were talking, and John looked at him and he said, you know, here's what you have to understand, that the quality of your life is really determined by the quality of your list. So we believe that at Ninja, the idea of taking the time to articulate what your why is really important. And I'm going to suggest an idea here. There's a blank life list, I believe, in your handout. Instead of just trying to sit down and do it by yourself, what if you invited your partner, your family, if you have any of those people that live in your household, as part of your December celebration, to do a life list together, and everybody has a say in it, and everybody gets to write it down. Leave a blank life list on your counter in your kitchen for the next 4 or 5 or 6 days, and give everybody the permission, invite them to write anything down that they think would be really exciting. Because here's what we know. Your life list goes backwards and programs your reticular activating system. Once your life list is built, your reticular activating sees and creates more and more opportunities to fulfill the destiny created by your life list. And you remember, instead of just doing a bucket list where everything is all lumped together, we divided the life list into 4 categories. Things you would, if you could wave a magic wand and have anything you wanted for your family, what would be? If you have a family. If you could wave a magic wand and have anything for your career, in addition to selling houses, would you like to be on the board of directors at NABOR? Wait a second. Oh, Corey's not here because she's being inducted today. Woo, woo, woo. Go, Corey. That was probably on her bucket list at some time, on her life list. Then everything that got set aside for this year, let's rekindle that future looking hope and dream. And then finally, many of you go, I think I have enough stuff, but what I really want to do is leave a legacy. I want to leave a legacy of donation. My favorite charity, if I could walk in each year and give $25,000, I could truly change the trajectory of the people that they, or the animals that organization changes. So remember these 4 categories and give yourself permission this week to think about this, not in a, oh, I want to get it done mindset, but let me really meditate on this. Because here's what we remember. Once you get this done, your reticular activating system, which is your brain's filtering and focusing device, focuses either on what you want, value, and love, or what you don't want. So what we want it focused on is not the fear side of the equation. Oh my gosh, this is going to happen as a result of the pandemic or the outcome of the election. But you want to take control and say, here's what I want, here's what I value, and here's what I love. I value my relationships. I love the people I'm around, and I want this to happen. And then your reticular activating system will find evidence to make that happen. Because remember the big phrase, what you focus on expands. So if that phrase has drifted from your consciousness, let's re-engage that, because it is one of the most powerful concepts at Ninja. And so we, of course, have to control our focus. So the question I ask everybody right now is, if all of your dreams got kind of terminated this year, my wife and I, we had 4 big trips planned that all got canceled. And the question is, what are you looking forward to right now? We want to rekindle the looking forward to piece. So that's one of the questions you want to have front and center right now for December. What are you looking forward to with your family, with your occupation, with your recreation, dreams to do and to give? So add that question to, what am I really looking forward to? And everything we're doing today is going to require just a little bit of introspection time. It's December. I know it's hopefully, or you're just coming into the massive season there, but don't let the busyness foreclose the opportunity to do a little introspection right now. Number 2 is your ability to control your focus and your emotional energy. And you recall that there are 4 quadrants. And so we don't say that somebody's negative, he's a negative person. We say that person spends a lot of time in the high negative quadrant. And you remember the 4 quadrants are high negative. That's when everything has gone awry, everything's miserable. What a year where a lot of people spend a lot of time in the high negative quadrant. The low negative quadrant is Eeyore, who walks around going, well, things could be better. Never completely hair on fire, but just always with the black cloud over his or her head. And if you remember, this comes from a study about where the best performances on athletes, artists gets turned in. And if you remember, the high positive quadrant is where people turn in their best performances. In our world, we say whenever you're talking to a client, you have to be in the high positive quadrant. But you can't live there because it's too emotionally expensive. Where we all want to live is in the low positive quadrant. Think of a fire that's burning perfectly, not raging, but it's sustainable, it's controlled. When you're in the low positive quadrant, you're focused, you know what your purpose is, you're on purpose rather than on accident. But anytime that you deal with a client, you move yourself into the high positive quadrant. In other words, into the performance quadrant. And we've already had this joke, but realtors are funny. They have this belief that say, well, I get spam calls so much, I never answer a phone call from a number I don't know who's not in my phone. And I go, well, that's a genius strategy. I'm sure that the people that call you to list their house, you already have them in your phone, even though you've never met them. So our reminder is how you answer the phone is how you get into the high positive quadrant. And I call realtors all the time, all over the country, and they answer the phone, hello? And I'm like, oh my gosh, what just happened to you? So first thing to do is to take control of your emotional energy and your focus and put yourself into the high positive. Anytime you're answering the phone, answer the phone, hello, this is Peter, not hello, because you're transmitting energy at any given moment. Now, what our job at Ninja is to control our focus. And this comes from Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Second set of circles, and I'm going to show you one more. There are 3 circles that he defines that we have what he calls our circles of focus. The outer circle is what he calls our circle of concern. Those are things that you're worried about. Oh my gosh, am I going to get the pandemic? Oh my gosh, is the world going to come to an end because the, X got elected? Oh my gosh, what's going to happen if? And people who focus on their circle of concern generally live in fear. And the key is they have no ability to influence or control them. Players in our world focus on their circle of influence, but primarily on their circle of control. The more time you spend on your circle of concern, the more susceptible you are in Napoleon Hill's book to the forces of distraction and entertainment and the devil. So the first thing to do every day is to clock how much time did I spend energy worrying about things I cannot control, and then take that back and say, I'm going to focus entirely on things that I can control and things that I have influence over. Let me ask you a question. Can Corey control the board? No, but she can influence it. So take stock of how much time you're spending on your circle of concern and try and minimize that down to zero. As we say, ninjas focus on our circles of control and influence, not our circle of concern. So here's what's interesting. A drifter is controlled by others, by distractions. And I want to kind of weigh this out here. They live in their circle of concern. We got this beautiful meme from one of our ninjas. We live in a world of distraction, weapons of mass distraction, which I think are perfect. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. You know that YouTube is the #1 most trafficked website in the world. There's more great information on how to do things on YouTube, and there is more opportunity for wasting time on YouTube than any other place. The rabbit hole of algorithms, which leads me to, if you are looking for an amazing movie, I would, over Christmas, and if you have children, I would urge you to watch something called The Social Dilemma. This movie is a Netflix documentary created by many of the creators of social media. The president of Pinterest is on there. The guy that invented the like button on Facebook is on there. And they talk about, well, let me ask you all, have you ever had that weird thing where you are searching the web for a particular product, and then 4 minutes later, you're on Facebook and an ad for the product shows up on Facebook? And you're going, wait a second, Big Brother is watching us. Well, they explain how the algorithms on Social Dilemma, on social media are designed to hook you into staying online so that they can sell you stuff. And it is just a spectacular movie. If I had the comment stream open, if you've watched this, oh my gosh, I think it's well worth it, especially with your kids. We've already talked about this. Robin Sharma, he says it beautifully. The enemy of mastery is not mediocrity, it is distractions. Our addiction to distractions is ruining many potentially awesome lives. The president of Pinterest, every single person in this documentary has disallowed their children from having social media. And again, these are the guys that created it, because they said it is so addictive. You've all spent 15 extra minutes following the next proposal on YouTube or on Instagram or TikTok. And it is these distractions that is really keeping us from our chief definite aim. The third piece we have to do, so let's review. We want to get our why clear. We want to control our focus and our energy. And then the third is we have to focus on success habits. And the piece I want to talk about now, for me, is just really amazing. And it focuses around the most recent great book on habits. Most of you have maybe at least heard of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, High Performance Habit, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, Napoleon Hill. It starts with this idea, and this is a philosopher from Australia. He says, people do not decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures. So if you want to lead an on-purpose life, you really have to have on-purpose habits. And so the question, obviously, for all of us is, well, yeah, I've heard that it takes 21 days to make a habit. You know, that's complete BS. Whoever dreamt that up has never really tried to create a habit or break a habit. Certain habits maybe take 21 days, but the research shows that certain habits can take up to 9 months to create. There are different kinds of habits. Everybody here probably brushes their teeth. That's a habit that we all have, hopefully. And nobody has to tell you to brush your teeth. And sometimes you might, forget in the morning once. Please don't. But habits that last come because we certainly know the benefit and we believe in why they're created. So everything I want to talk about now comes from this really remarkable book from James Clear. If you are choosing books to read over the holidays, I have 2 ideas. First is I would reread The Go-Giver. I reread it recently, and I think it's one of the most beautiful and brilliant books. And you might consider this book. I'm going to give you the highlights of it. Hopefully it will entice you. It was written last year. And if you like to listen to books on tape, James reads it, and it's just beautiful. But he says, we all focus, especially at this time of year, on goal setting. But he said, there's a problem with goal setting that we don't realize. If you set goals and then you don't make them, then what happens is you feel bad about them. And so the real problem is, if you set a diet goal and then you break it, you feel bad about yourself. If you set an exercise goal and you break it, you go, I guess it wasn't meant to be. If you set money goals or stuff goals, he says, goal setting is in many ways, without supporting behaviors, a recipe for self-doubt. And so the way he says it is, let's not focus on goals. Let's create a system to build the habits that last, because success isn't a goal to reach or a finish line to cross. It's a system to improve. And I thought, man, that is such a better way to look at it, because that really says what I do today is really what matters, not am I going to get there in the future. So we have a proven system of success. It's the Ninja 9. And if you remember, and I'm going to go through this, that if you're trying to create a business plan, or if you've created a business plan, the backbone of a successful business plan is the Ninja 9. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. And just to go through it, if you remember, I'm going to explain what they are, but somebody asked us, where did the Ninja 9 come from? And it's the result of 20 years worth of research that Larry did, and in combination with a guy named Howard Brinton from Star Power. Everything we talk about, as you know, at Ninja is road tested at the laboratory at the group. And as you recall, we're doing about 28 transactions on average per agent with 200 agents, just based on the Ninja 9. Some of you on the call have been in the business long enough to remember a guy named Howard Brinton. And Howard Brinton, during the 80s and 90s, went around the country and interviewed top performing realtors and tried to figure out what they had in common behaviorally that created their success. And if you were a subscriber to Howard Brinton, if you remember what a cassette tape is back in the 1900s, it was a subscription. And every month he would send you another interview on your cassette tape that you could stick into your car and listen to it, of a top performer. He interviewed Larry, Larry Kendall, who wrote the Ninja System, who it turned out to be the most listened to interview that Howard had ever done, because it turns out that Howard Brinton and Larry were on the same track of identifying what patterns of success were common amongst top producers. And it turns out that the Ninja 9 is the distillation of 20 years worth of research. So the very first thing we want to do every morning, and most top producers put themselves in the high positive energy quadrant by focusing on things they're grateful for and writing an affirmation. Number 2, they time block. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but during the pandemic, oh my gosh, talking about an out of control time. This has been the completely reactive real estate career from March 15th to now. But we love the idea of saying, no, from 8:30 to 10, I'm going to focus on doing my success habits. Number 3, still write your personal notes more than ever, even though you're not out and about as much as you used to. Man, getting a personal note in the mailbox is so exciting. Let's remember to focus on our prospective prospects, hot and warm. I think a lot of people have gotten sloppy during the pandemic because it's just goofy out there. We call this the Ninja 5 because these are the daily. And I want to share with you the results of a interview panel. Larry was doing a panel of top producers, and these are $40 to $60 million agents, $30 to $60 million agents in Denver, Scottsdale, and the Southwest. And he asked them all, what is the one thing that you do that influences your career? And they all said the Ninja 5, the daily routine. And he said, well, tell me about it. And Cheryl Anderson, who's from Scottsdale, she said, here's what I've learned. When I start my day right, I have a great day. Then when my great days stack up, they turn into great weeks. When I have great weeks, guess what starts to happen? I have great months. And then my great months made my best year so far. She said her production increased $20 million just by following the morning routine faithfully. In other words, the habit of starting the behaviors was creating the success. Her goal was not success. Her goal was to create the habit. So Robin Sharma goes on to say, your most important hour is the first hour of every day. Right now, setting up 2021, let's go back. If you have lost track of your morning routine, let's go back and reinvigorate that. Then, of course, the 4 weekly habits are stay in contact with your clients, do the service calls, reach out to people and tell them about their real estate. You know, we have this remarkable and unique opportunity right now because everything in the economy is kind of crumbling and real estate is exploding. So we urge November to be Real Estate Review Month because people are curious and you can just say, hey, I just want to tell you what happened in your building. If they are second homeowners, reach out to them. You're their ears on the ground in Naples. Third, get off the text and the email. Let's talk to people live. And then remember, update your database. Final piece here, your Ninja 9 is the core of your business plan. And hopefully you're finished a business plan or you're working on it. And if you're looking around for what to focus on the Ninja 9. Jim Rohn, one of my very favorite mentors, says, the question is not whether the formula for success will work for a person, but whether a person will work the formula. And then he goes on and he says, you know, the key is things are easy to do and easy not to do, like the Ninja 9. And he says, why would someone not follow the daily activities that lead to success? And then he said, he answers this. He says, the answer is because he or she does not think it matters. The Ninja 9 matter. They will make 2021 a spectacular year. Don't do the Ninja 4, don't do the Ninja 6, do the Ninja 9. So Gretchen Rubin says it beautifully. What you do every day matters more than what you do once in a while. So what we want to focus on is this idea of daily activities, because your life is really the aggregation of your decisions repeated over time, daily decisions. And James Clear says that good habits make time your friend and bad habits make time your enemy. What does he mean by that? If you consistently create good habits, all of a sudden your life is rich and you have time. The more bad habits you make, the worse your life becomes over time. Same thing that's said in the slide edge. So let me finish with this conversation. You know, some of us have a complete passion for real estate. I believe that if you've been in the business 10 or 20 years, on any given day, you can love real estate, and on any given day, you can hate real estate. And generally, you hate it based on your last worst client. A bad client can make you think, maybe I should be a Walmart greeter. But then a great client is like, I love the business. But what really drives real estate is not the transaction, it's why you're doing it. In other words, are you doing it for your children if you have them? Are you doing it to send them to college? Are you doing it for your retirement? Are you doing it because I want to pay off my parents' house? Are you doing it because I really want to see all 7 continents? In other words, the clarity of what your passion is most important. And then you have to figure that out, and then you have to fund it. But the life list really turns out to be your rocket fuel. So James Clear, third circles, let's assume that you are going to have 3 children in college at the same time. And college is about $50,000 a year minimum right now for a nice school. Even here in Fort Collins, if you send in-house, in residency to CSU, it's $30,000 a year. College is expensive. And let's say you had 3 kids you needed to put through college at $50,000 a year, plus you got to pay the taxes on it. So you need to make $200,000 a year. That's the outcome of your habits, as James Clear says it. Then you have to figure out what processes get you to that. And we believe that the Ninja 9 is your key to living your dream, your goal, your passion. And your identity, as he says, is really what drives everything. And so you have to establish what your identity is before anything happens. And in our case, we're ninjas. So let's go through this. As he says, the ultimate form of intrinsic motivation is when a habit becomes a part of your identity. What does he mean by that? Instead of saying my goal this year is to make 200,000, my goal is to say, I'm the type of person who is healthy. I'm the type of person that controls my time. I'm the type of person who cares about my people. And then your habits will support your identity instead of the person I wants this. Let me give you some examples. The goal is not to run a marathon this year. The goal is to become a runner. And once you have an identity as a runner, what you run becomes a part of your identity. The goal is not to take a ninja class one time. The goal is to become a ninja. Let me go down this a little bit farther. The goal is not to choose a diet. The goal is to become a healthy person. And let me give you the example. Once you say, you know, my identity is as a healthy person. I'm the type of person that takes care of my body. When you're at the supermarket and you are in the potato chip aisle and you go, oh my gosh, my favorite brand of potato chips, sea salt and Vinny, they are for sale right now. I'm just going to grab a few extra bags because sometimes they're out of sea salt and vinegar. All of a sudden your identity kicks in and says, well, I'm the type of person that takes care of my body. Is eating 4 bags of sea salt and vinegar potato chips what a healthy person does? So instead of the goal to get healthy, the goal is to establish an identity that you can support by your habits. And then our Aristotle quote is, we become what we do repeatedly. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, it's a habit, is the support to that. So here's what our suggestion is. Along with the 2 things we've already talked about, working on your life list, sit down by yourself, take a few minutes in your morning routine and ask yourself, what is my identity? What type of person am I? Am I a person that says, yes, I'm a healthy person? Am I a person that says, I take care of the people around me? Am I the type of person that is on purpose, or am I on accident? And then make a decision for 2021 to get clear on your identity. And then every time you make a decision, you're really making a vote for your identity. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. If your identity is a healthy person and you go for 2 weeks without exercising, you're going, no, that isn't my identity. I want to become a healthy person. And here's what we know, is every act you don't do is a vote for against your identity. So when you're changing your identity, your self-talk, when faced with the decision about the sea salt and vinegar or an extra order of French fries, is what would a healthy person do? What would a wealthy person do? What would a ninja do? And then you say, would a healthy person do this? No, I'm a healthy person, so I'm not going to do it. And we're going to use our identity to support our habits. So every time you decide to do the Ninja 9, they're a vote for your ninja identity. And if our goal at Ninja is to have a high income per hour and a magnificent life, the way we vote for that is by following the Ninja 9. So to change your identity, let's go through this. There are 4 simple steps. Decide who you want to become for 2021. Write it down, because committing things to writing changes them. Number 2, make sure that you focus on your affirmations and your visualizations to confirm your identity so that you are reminded. Number 3, vote for your identity with your habits. And then number 4, and this is the last thing we want to talk about, is select a peer group that supports your identity. What does that mean? Be around people that are doing the same thing that you're doing. If you remember from the installation, David McClellan from Harvard University, a social psychologist, he says as much as 80% of your success can be attributed to your reference group. A reference group, by definition, is the 5 people that you spend the majority of your time around. And what he said is, I can predict your income and your net worth by averaging the income of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. That is the #1 predictor of your success. In other words, birds of a feather flock together, as we say. James Clear supports that. He says, one of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behavior and identity is the norm. In other words, even if it's your family, let's design the habit and the culture of what you want based on your identity. Hang out with people. If you want to become a healthy person, who do you want to hang out with? People whose identity is, I want to become a healthy person. If you want to be a financially independent person, hang out with people who've done that. So the idea here is, you're on this call today, which is fantastic. And there are 53 people today who have made the decision to try and improve and identify their identity. Hang out with those people and support each other, because nothing sustains motivation better than belonging to the right tribe. And you're belonging to the perfect John R. Wood tribe. You're with people who are taking time out of their life to improve themselves. And what a fantastic place to be. So to recap, the 3 simple steps to living on purpose are: discover your why, then control your focus, emotional energy, and importantly, your fear, and finally, focus on your success habits and your peer group. What a beautiful month in December to take the time to define these 3 things for yourself. And this really will make 2021 a spectacular year. So as we say, if you're doing your business plan, step 1 is to discover your why. And a lot of people say, I just want to do 25 million this year. And that's fantastic, but don't stop there. Ask the question, what will you do with the money? Then get clear on your identity and say to yourself, I'm the type of person that takes care of my people, which then doesn't make connecting with people on your database a chore. It is a gift, because your identity is taking care of your people. And then start talking the I am habit. So as we say to finish this, life happens at the level of movement, not words. What does that mean? You have to do it, not just talk about it. So let's remember that the system works. Let's make 2021 a spectacular year. But really our pledge for today is, let's start 2021 today and make December the kickoff to an unbelievable 2021. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to stop sharing. And if anybody wants to unmute or have any questions or reactions, you can. Hey, Rod, how are you? You can do one of these. Any comments? I'd love to hear. Yeah, very good, Ron. Hi, Kyle. Nice to see you. So anybody have any questions or weigh in or thoughts or questions? It's so weird. Everybody unmute so it gets noisy. It's way too quiet. Let's just get some December 1st chaos. Unmute and say something.
Thank you, Peter.
Oh, that's so much better, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
I think we're going to have a great day. So
Thank
remember,
Thank you.
any other comments other than thank you? I really appreciate that. Any insights?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. It's a great start coming up for 2021. Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's rock it. That's right. So what
Peter,
if, yes, sir.
what's the #1 book for 2021 that they should be reading?
Well, there's 3 that I loved. I think Atomic Habits. It's the only book in my life that I've read cover to cover, and then I reread it the second time. I think it's incredibly powerful. While I was reading that, I had this sort of divine intervention to reread The Go-Giver. So if it were me, I would read, I'd read the James Clear book. I would read Go-Giver. And then the third book, if you're a reader, read The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. I think it is a life-changing view of us in a competitive industry. And it's so topical based on what has happened politically as well. So cannot overemphasize the beauty of that book too. Does that help, James?
Yep.
Yeah. In any order.
I'm good. How are you?
All right, y'all. Let's have a fantastic December. Thank you for spending
There's
today
some
with me.
closets straight ahead. Why don't you put them in there?
And
Yeah, there's the unmuting. Worked perfectly. All right, let's have a ninja hand clap on the count of 3. 1, 2, bam. See you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Peter.
appreciate it. Have a good day, everybody.